Yo, what is up, guys? It's the Nightwing at Way of Life Esports coming at you guys with another League of Legends video here today. This is the Worlds 2020 Group Stage, Day 5, 6, and 7, thoughts and opinions. So there is so much to discuss about these specific days of the Worlds 2020 Group Stage. Now, sitting atop of Group A, you have Suning and you have G2 Esports. Sitting atop of Group B, Damwon Gaming and JD Gaming. Sitting atop of Group C is Gen G and Fnatic. These teams are on their way to the quarterfinals for the 2020 World Championship. So let's dive right into it and start with Group A, which happened on Day 5. So I think that Machi Esports showed all their cards against Team Liquid. They had to cheese a win against Team Liquid in the way that you saw other bad teams do this. Obviously, in play-ins, this happened a lot. But to Machi's respect, it did amount to them actually getting a win. But then after that, they never replicated any of the success they had in that win against Team Liquid. It was all just pretty much Gemini and Mission not being able to really get the other members on the squad together. They made a lot of mistakes, particularly around objectives and how they actually perceive team fights. They had a close game against G2, but in that aspect, you know, at some point during the game, you and me know that obviously having the better players really does put G2 above them. So if G2 ended up falling behind, we knew that G2 could pull it out because of their quality of players compared to how Machi were absolutely throwing at certain points during the game. So Machi Esports definitely surprised me about certain things that they were able to do, and I liked Gemini and Mission, but the issue here was they just couldn't pull it together when it really mattered to get more wins. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, actually. So let's go on to Team Liquid, who actually could have played for a tiebreaker if G2 had beaten Suning actually in the match before that specific tiebreaker for first place. So Team Liquid overall, I think that they should go home with their head held up high. They actually played pretty okay for what most people expected from Team Liquid. I think that Jensen and Core JJ were easily the standout stars of the team. I specifically think that overall, if Team Liquid want to have success moving forward for the 2021 spring split, I personally think that you need to sign Jensen and Core JJ and make sure they would want to stay on Team Liquid. I already know that, you know, Core JJ is contracted obviously to, you know, be on Team Liquid until 2022, right? But Jensen's contract and Impact's contract are expiring, I think, this year. So I would lock down Jensen. I would actually think about replacing Broxa. I think Broxa's contract only lasted for a year as well. So you also have that going for you, is that if you let go with Impact and Broxa, you can open up the opportunities for Team Liquid with other players. I think that Broxa played pretty poorly in the group stage, actually. He played okay at certain games that they won, but it doesn't overall take away that he had a pretty lackluster year on Team Liquid overall. And I personally think that if Team Liquid want to ever get out of group stage, they're gonna need a stronger top and jungle duo, and Impact and Broxa just aren't it. Tactical overall played pretty solid. It was his first world championship, and I am proud of him for how well he stepped up when it mattered. He did make a few misplays here or there, but everybody does that in their first world championship anyway, and it happens to the best of us. I think overall Team Liquid should keep their bot side and consider replacing their top side. Now, looking at G2 Esports, I know a lot of people like to say when G2, you know, obviously wins, they're like the best team in the world, innovators, some bullshit like that. And then if they lose, they're trolling. Well, if you're really fucking stupid, you'll believe that about the trolling part, because when they lose, they just simply lose. Yankos on the latest Euphoria podcast literally said they're not trolling. So if you are so stupid and you believe they're trolling, when the player literally says they're not trolling, you're actually a moron. But overall, I think that this iteration of G2 compared to last year is actually weaker. Now, I love G2, but obviously I'm going to call out things as I see it. They're making a lot of plays that amount to something, but don't really get the whole thing done. Last year, when they would make a play, it would make a lot of sense compared to what their comp wanted to do. But this year, it just feels like this iteration of G2, obviously it's the same, and the meta's changed, but you have to understand that they're not playing to the exact caliber they were playing last year. I never bought into the fact that people said that they were better this year than last year. They were much better last year, and coming out of this group, they're gonna be a pretty weak second seed coming out of the group, you know? I don't know who they'll draw, obviously, but it's gonna be an uphill battle for G2 if they want to make a repeat appearance in the finals, because this year's teams are going to be challenging them in different ways. And I think that overall, Mickey X and Wonder and Caps were their best performers. I think that Perks and Yankos were liabilities. I think that drafting against Suning was really atrocious outside of their first win against Suning. I think that drafting specific champions for G2 doesn't really work. I like the creative compositions that they were creating last year, but I know that can't happen this year based off the patch and the meta in it of itself. But yeah, those are my thoughts on G2 Esports. I still love them. You know, I'm still proud they made it out of the group, obviously, but they weren't playing that good. And I'm not going to sit here and straight up lie to you like some people would. All right, so Suning actually played pretty solid throughout most of the group stage. I actually think that they were the best team in the group. If you look at it record-wise and gameplay-wise, they had the one mishap game against Team Liquid where they had a pretty good invade on Team Liquid's part. I think that coming into the quarterfinals, you're going to really have to understand that Suning plays the game in a specific way, but they can be very, very proactive, and they're a team you can beat. I mean, this is not a clear-cut best team in the world right now where it's like they're going to easily 3-0 whoever they're going to face. Now, they are a dark horse, in my own personal opinion, like Gen G, who we'll get to in just a moment, but I think that overall, for Suning, SOFM and Angel and Bin are the best performers. Huanfeng and Sorda are good for what they can do, but I'm going to have to see more of Suning in a best of 5 against whoever their opponent is to really give you an accurate judgment of them, and that will conclude Day 5 of the Worlds 2020 group stage. Going on to Day 6 of the Worlds 2020 group stage, most of this group was pretty easy to predict overall. I personally think that this was the group of death, in my own personal opinion. Now, for several different reasons, why I think that this was the group of death was because literally it was just Damwon and JDG fighting for spots to get out. Now, starting off with Rogue, I think even Rogue underperformed to their own expectations because most people just had Damwon, JDG, Rogue, and PSG. PSG actually surprised and got 2 wins. I was like, what the hell? What is going on here? They actually took down JDG and they actually took down Rogue. And I was like, what the hell? So I think overall for Rogue, people like to tunnel on the fact that they got first place in EU in the LEC 2020 Summer Split, which auto-qualifies you for Worlds. And I think that overall, looking at them in the playoffs of the LEC 2020 Summer Split, we got a chance to see basically a lot of problems they had when it came to not even just proactivity, just like how they put their proactivity out there. Like if you have your jungler doing something with your top laner, why is your bot side trying to contest tower plates? Just little things like that overall. Finn is a liability, but you got to think of it this way. He did play pretty well, obviously, on the day that I'm specifically talking about, which was Day 6 of the Worlds 2020 group stage. Now, JDG have also massively underperformed, in my own personal opinion. I think that they were very, very bland. They didn't really show me anything new. I think that coming into the quarterfinals, I hope whoever they face, they actually put up a better competition than they did in this group stage. This should have been a clear-cut group of its Damwon, JDG, and Damwon and JDG fighting for that first seed. You know, you really should not be seeing JDG dropping games to the likes of PSG Talon. Even Rogue had a really close game against JDG as well. I think that Zoom is their best performing member. I think that the rest of them have stuff they can still obviously do, but I'm just not really high on JDG. And based off even just the casual fans' expectations, this team has massively underperformed. Now, going into the quarterfinals, hopefully they can show me something different because they are able to beat faster-paced teams like Top Esports in their own region. So let's hope they can bounce back for the next round. Damwon is easily, I think, the best team at the event right now. Now, there was the issue of Showmaker randomly giving away solo kills, and this happened more or less so on this day as well, where you literally had the solo laners giving up too much advantage early on, but it didn't matter because the teams that they were facing just didn't punish them correctly enough. So with that being said, I personally think that Damwon, if they want to win the World Championship, you don't want to be giving up early game pressure like that, because if you give up early game pressure like that, the right team will punish it and it will put them in a different spot than they're normally in. And them obviously getting beat by JDG, which was not exactly like one-sided as some people like to make it out to be. It was actually a pretty close game to the point where Damwon, despite being 6,000 gold down, was still winning team fights. Like, how crazy is that? Like, it's just things like that which puts Damwon in a class of their own compared to the other teams at the World Championship right now. All right, so that concludes day 6 of the World 2020 championship. I just really didn't care for this group overall. It was pretty clear to me that Damwon and JDG were going to get out, even though JDG were pretty much underperforming pretty well. All right, so moving on, you have day 7 of the Worlds 2020 group stage, which was the TSM group. And I have a lot to say about TSM, but before I even get to that, let's start with Gen G. So Gen G started off okay, and I think that as the more games they played, there's holes in their gameplay that I didn't think that Fnatic nor LGD were actually capitalizing on. Their 5-1 record, I don't think is super indicative about how strong they actually were. Now, don't get me wrong. They were strong at various points during the game. And overall, some of their wins looked pretty dominant, quote unquote. But that was literally just, up against TSM. So at that point, I'm thinking to myself, you got to look at it this way. Gen G are strong, but they can be beaten, like JDG. So literally, if I see a matchup of like Gen G versus JDG, who are you taking? Because they basically have the same issues. And Rascal for JDG is a problem. He's also a top laner you can easily exploit. But then you could also think about exploiting other places in their gameplay. They have holes in their gameplay that I think that other teams, if they have the right draft and are prepared for them, they can take them out. Because there's no way you should be losing in a game against TSM when they're 0-4, letting Bjergsen and Broken Blade and Doublelift pop off the way they did. That was actually pretty crazy. Oh my lord. You know what's crazy? Is that I'll never have like loud cars outside stop, and I'll never have my phone stop going off on fucking notifications. Holy flippin' Christ. Alright, so let's get back to these other teams in this group. So I think that Fnatic thoroughly surprised me in this group. I actually thought that, their mental wasn't going to be strong enough to hold them out in their losses, but they ended up surprising me. I actually think that Fnatic played overall pretty solid, nothing spectacular, nothing like blow your mind away, but I think that Reckless and Hylissang, which was a coin flip bot lane for Fnatic currently right now, actually played pretty stable. Selfmade was instrumental to actually how many wins they actually got. I think that Whipple was solid. Overall, you had a pretty solid Fnatic, and they normally always get out of groups anyway. The only group stage they ever missed was in 2014. That was like 6 years ago. So, yeah, Fnatic getting out of groups like this doesn't even surprise me. They are a strong team, and they do deserve to move on. I think that moving forward, I could see them taking games off a squad like Suning. Like, let's say you have Suning and Fnatic going up against each other in the quarterfinals. I could see Fnatic beating them. I could, but then again, I'll have to, really accurately go back and watch the VODs and see what are things that Fnatic really, actually struggled with. Because I think they struggled with, like, face checking, but that more or less so comes to, like, Hylissang's point. So that's kind of what you have to, like, decipher. Was that a team decision or was that his own decision? Now, going on to LGD, I think that LGD were just really inconsistent. Like, just so many plays where they weren't on the same page. They won a lot of games simply because they knew how to exactly finish out a game. But it's the same thing like T1. T1 have this issue too. You have a bunch of decent to good players, but they don't really play well together. And that's more or less so comes down to what this LGD is. Lang X played worse as the tournament went by. I think Xie played pretty good overall for his whole run for the Worlds 2020. And I think that Peanut will now be deemed a coin flip jungler. Mark and Kramer were an okay bot lane. Kramer dealt a lot of damage in team fights, but then again for laning, he wasn't the best either, so that's kind of how I have to see it right now. But that's pretty much it for LGD. I think either you had them getting out of the group or you had them at third place. That's pretty much how it landed. Alright, so moving on to TSM. Now, there will be so many more podcasts that I'll do, so many more live shows that I'll have where I'll be discussing, TSM. Now, I think that TSM had one good game, and that was only against Genji, and they still ended up losing that. There were so many problems with TSM. Like, right now, if I were to go over all of them, I'd be here for like 3 hours. But I'll just kind of boil it down to a couple of things. Number one, mid-game. Their mid-game is terrible. They have no mid-game. It doesn't exist. Bjergsen not showing up in this group really hurt TSM's chances because everybody knew going in Bjergsen was their best player. So if Bjergsen, their best player, is not showing up in situations in games like this, it really does hinder them to obviously get out, because at Worlds or any World Championship, you need to have a strong mid laner. Now, whether or not he was strong during the split before these teams come into Worlds is irrelevant. You need to be strong right now. You need to be clutch right now. It's all about the right now. Nothing else matters. It all matters right now. That's what it all comes down to. It doesn't matter how good you played in your finals of your region, depending on which split you were in the finals, or however you got to Worlds. All that matters is right now, you play, and you're clutch, and you're the strong player that your team needs. And he was only that player for the Genji game, where he was on Lucian, popping off. Other than that, Bjergsen was pretty underwhelming. But Bjergsen was not the worst player on TSM. That definitely goes to Biofrost. He definitely played like dog shit. But overall, there will be another time to really accurately break down TSM. I'm pretty sure we'll go in depth into TSM this week on both my shows, which is C9 Fancast and Rift Insight. We'll massively dive into TSM. But being the first NAC to go 0-6, I mean, like, looking at their week one, did anybody really think they were going to win a game? Like, look at their faces on their webcams. They look devastated. They look like they went to scrims, lost all their scrims, and then just gave up on life. That's how bad it looked for them. So, I predicted they weren't going to be that good anyway. As you guys have heard me say in multiple shows and videos I obviously did for you guys, I didn't even think they were that good to begin with. I thought it was a lot of throwing on FlyQuest and Team Liquid's part in the LCS 2020 Summer Split overall. But yeah, them going 0-6, I don't know what they're going to do, obviously. Change the roster, you can keep doing that, but it starts at the top. Your coaches, your infrastructure need to be a strong foundation if you want to do better. Now, there is no excuse. Third seeds from North America should be outperforming first seeds. This is not the first time a third seed has outperformed the other higher seeds for coming out of North America. So that's pretty much it. I know people are probably going to want me to just dive right into TSM and just wreck them later. See you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I am the Nightwing, and Way of Life Esports is signing out, guys. Peace. Have a great day.
Hi there, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more stuff.
Yeah, thank you.